everyone, Obsidianite here, and welcome to my ability breakdown vid for Rodent Royale, a new and nutty battle royale in which you play a squirrel fighting for neighborhood dominance. Here I'm going to explain to you all the different abilities that you can choose and upgrade as you level up during your conquests, explain how they work and what they do. Since the game is currently in beta phase, I won't dive into damage or cooldown numbers because those are more subject to change as the game evolves than the abilities themselves. Without further ado, let's get started with the offensive abilities. These are outlined in red on your UI and are unlocked at levels 1 and 5. First up, we've got road signs. These conjure 3 traffic signs that can be launched on command. After 8 seconds, the projectiles are lost if not fired. So what happens is, you equip them with your Q, and they fly pretty far. You can pretty much snipe with them. And any of the ones that are on your back at the end of your command are just gone. They just leave. And then your ability goes on cooldown. Next up, we have Pine Cone Cannon. This fires 3 explosive pine cones in a wide spread, dealing area damage on impact. Damage increases when fired from further away. So, at first glance, this may look like a shotgun to you. There's a little bit of a loading time before you actually fire, and there's an audio cue that lets enemies nearby know that they're being aimed at with the Pine Cone Cannon. As you can see, the projectiles travel pretty far, which means if you can land some snipes with them from far away, you'll deal a lot of damage. Next up, we have the Short Circuit. This emits a short-range electric field around you, damaging players in your field of view. So it's a pretty easy skill to understand, I think. Once you fire the ability, it appears in a large sphere around you, and the sphere does travel with you. So if you're in the air, it's a whole sphere. If you're on the ground will obstruct the sphere, so it's a dome, but it operates just the same. So if you jump, it's still a whole sphere of electricity surrounding you that does damage over time through terrain, such as walls and floors. So keep that in mind too. Okay, let's talk about the sticky mushroom. This throws a sticky mushroom that can be detonated on command. It can stick to other players and surfaces and press again to detonate. So basically it is what it sounds like. It's a sticky bomb, but you can detonate it on command. So instead of waiting for the sticky bomb to expire after a certain amount of time, you can just press the key again to trigger the explosion yourself. As you can see, it fires pretty straightforward, but it does have some bullet drop, so if you're trying to snipe somebody with it from far away, just be mindful. Now we've got the Roman Candle. This fires multiple explosive fireworks in a sequence barrage, dealing area damage on impact. Let's see it in action. So, as you can see, the Roman Candles, for as long as the ability is active, continues to fire missiles wherever you're looking. It doesn't have a set location once you fire the missiles, so you can continue to aim your missiles wherever you please. These are really good for harassing players that are far away, or dealing a bunch of burst damage up close, almost like a shotgun. Alright, next up we've got Heartburn. This is a short range and heavy damage conic burst that's fired in front of you. This will knock back players that are hit by it. So if there's someone who's getting all up in your face, just burp all up in their face back, and it'll push them off, and you can continue to do whatever you like. It's pretty powerful once upgraded, so if you do take this, I recommend upgrading it first to get as much damage as you can out of it. Next up, we have my personal favorite, the Bag of Garbage. This hurls a stinky bag of garbage that explodes on contact. It poisons the target for a short duration. This is my favorite attack in the whole game. Not that it's particularly powerful or overpowered or anything like that, it's just that damage over time is so good on top of the burst damage that you get from hitting somebody with the explosion of the poison. It's just so much fun. It also helps you keep track of people who are running away from you with that damage over time, so that's something to keep in mind too. Now we're going to talk about utilities, which are unlocked at level 2. These ones are highlighted in yellow on your UI, and you only get one of them, unlike the offensive abilities, of which you get 2. First up we have Hydro Pump. This is a focused beam of water that emits from the caster, causing extra damage to shielded players. So if you find yourself fighting particularly shieldy players, this is a good utility to pick up to pierce those shields. As you can see, it's just a continuous stream of water that fires where you look. There is a finite range on it though, so don't go try to snipe somebody from across the map. And while it does do regular damage to players, that extra damage only comes into effect on shields, so keep that in mind if you choose to take this as well. Let's look at the Autumn Storm now. This conjures a leaf storm where the projectile lands. Enemy players inside the storm are heavily slowed. So, as the tooltip says, you fire a projectile And once it hits the ground, wherever it impacts, it summons a large sphere of leaves and wind and things, and anyone caught inside this huge, huge radius will be severely slowed. So it's really useful for getting away or controlling the tides of battle in your favor. Up next, we have the Tranquilizer Dart. This fires a dart that puts targets to sleep on hit. Any damage caused will remove the effect. So, as the tooltip says, it does say targets. Now, even though it is just, a dart, it implies you can only hit one target with it. And as you can see here, it flies pretty far and straight and true, and it does hit the target. However, if you fire it at the ground, which I don't demonstrate here, it actually emits a kind of cloud, like an area of effect. And anyone caught in that will be put to sleep as well. So that's why the tooltip says targets. Just keep that in mind if you decide to use this utility tool. After that, we've got Corroded Battery. This hurls a battery that damages the target and briefly reduces their movement speed. Now, the battery does actually do damage on impact as well, but if you hit it at the ground, there's a little tiny area of effect that if you hit any targets with it, they'll be slowed as well. So while it doesn't have the giant radius that the Autumn Storm has, the Autumn Storm doesn't really do as much damage as the battery does with a direct hit. So you've got to pick and choose, according to your loadout, which slow you'd like to enact with your utility slot. Next we have the Claw! This fires a crane game claw that will pull the enemy player to your location on impact and damage them. So it's kind of like a grappling hook, except for instead of pulling you to the terrain, it pulls the enemy to you. However, this is based on the trajectory from which you fire, and sometimes the wrong angle can pull an enemy past you and send them flying away. So it's a bit of a hit or miss item, in my opinion, but it's still pretty useful if you can land it. Alright, here we have the Bugle Blast. This creates a powerful shockwave that knocks all nearby players away, deals minor damage, and sends the caster to the air. So this is a really, really fun ability. If somebody's all up in your face, pa-pow! Get them off your face, reposition by propelling yourself into the air, and follow up with any attack you like. Let's move on to mobility, which are highlighted in green on your UI. First, we've got Teleport. Look to where you want to teleport, and you will warp to that location several seconds after casting. So this is pretty self-explanatory. Wherever your cursor is at the time of casting, a portal will appear, and a few seconds later, bam! You will too. It does make a loud aural effect, so people can still track you if you're trying to run away. And keep in mind, it can get caught on terrain. So if you're aiming at a ceiling or anything, it won't go beyond that. So be careful. Alright, here's Infinity and Beyond. This grants rocket boosters that greatly increase movement speed for a short duration. Unfortunately, you can't quite fly with these. So with this ability, you put on a cute little toy rocket that, while it doesn't provide you any kind of levitation, still boosts your move speed for quite a bit. You can combine this with double jumping and charging claw attacks to really, really boost your traversal. Here we have the propeller. The player will be carried upwards into the air when repeatedly jumping. So once you activate this ability, there's a time limit on it, and then after that it expires. But within that time limit, you have as many jumps as you can mash your little spacebar. And, as well, you have a cute little hat. What's better than that? As with Infinity and Beyond, as well as any other movement ability actually, you can follow up with any attack you like after this. Here's a fun ability, Dash. Quickly dash in the direction of your movement input. So if you've played Overwatch and have used the character Tracer, you're pretty familiar with how this works. It's kind of like her blink. All you do is you just activate the ability while you're moving, and you'll dash quickly in that direction. Keep in mind that this is based on your movement, not where you're looking, so the dash is only affecting the X plane. The X plane? The horizontal plane, right? So while you can't blink directly upward, you can dash forwards, backwards, and, whichever way you can move your WASD keys, or your controller stick, whichever you decide to use. Here we have Trampoline. Bounce off a trampoline towards the direction that you're aiming. Best results when aiming up. So this one's kind of fun. It launches you on like a little trampoline that appears out of nowhere, and it does work best when you're looking up and you want to get that height, right? So you can use it to propel yourself forward, almost like a pseudo dash, but if you're trying to get some height, some verticality, trampoline is the best way to go. Here's my personal favorite movement ability. This one is Stealth. Become invisible after a short activation period. Slightly increases speed while stealth. Damage will reveal you. So, it works like any cloaking device in any other game would work. You turn invisible, and if you take any damage of any kind, you'll become revealed. However, newly added to this is, if you eat food, you can eat while you're cloaked. That is allowed. But as soon as you finish eating that food, you'll reveal yourself as well. After you uncloak, you'll emit kind of like a buzzy electrical sound, which will key enemies into where you are, so be careful. Let's move on to defensive abilities, which are unlocked at level 4. These ones are outlined in blue on your UI. First up, we've got Vanish. Instantly vanish from sight, granting stealth for several seconds. While vanished, damage taken is reduced. So, this is not the same as Stealth, which is a movement ability. This is a defensive ability. So, you could actually have both. However, the key difference between Stealth and Vanish is that you also get a period of invulnerability while you're cloaked. So you can use this to cleanse yourself of any status effects that you have with the invulnerability buff, as well as reduce incoming damage after that invulnerability expires while you're still stealthed. Pretty nifty for a get off me, or if you just want to reposition yourself very quickly. Alright, here we have the pot block. Hide inside a pot. This grants immunity, reduced movement speed, and inability to climb. It can be removed early by the caster too. Eating is allowed. So this is a very popular item as far as the beta goes. You are completely invulnerable while you're inside, although you are slowed and you can't climb anything, but you can do other things inside, like eat. So a popular strategy is to activate this pot when you're at the brink of death, and then eat something like a red aloe, which fully restores you to full health. You can also bait others into eating to counteract your pot, and then go for the strike yourself. There's myriad ways that you can use this item, it's very versatile. Here we have the Flower Bomb. This fires a bag of flour that emits a large cloud which obscures enemy vision, but not your own. Hide inside of it! Now this is really good advice, because the Flower Bomb, while it's not my favorite defensive item, I will take it if I'm out of rerolls, because you can reroll abilities that pop up. You get 3 rerolls, and then after that you're done. But as you can see, you have the hidden status while inside your own cloud, and it covers a huge radius. This is what it looks like to you, the player who casts it. But as the enemy, it's very obscuring, very opaque, and really hard to make out anything that's happening inside. So really, really useful for just kind of ambushing people or getting away to recover. If you're really cheeky, you can try to recover inside the cloud. But remember, while the enemy can't see you, they can still hear you. So it's a pretty risky move. Next up, we have the Squirrel's Nest. This creates a large nest around the player, trapping enemy players in or outside of it. The nest can be attacked. So keep that last bit in mind, because as an enemy, if you're trapped in or out of it, you can attack it to reduce its health and overall duration. It does expire after a set time, but you can reduce that, like I said, by attacking it. What's really neat is that if you are trapped outside of it, you can use it as a platform. You could travel over it and use it to your advantage. However, as the player who casts it, you can't do that. You only phase in and out and through it. However, your attacks do the same thing, whereas the enemies do not. Here we have one of my personal favorites, the Reflect. This reflects certain projectiles back at the caster. It also reflects melee damage. So this is really useful. It casts a dome of basically impenetrability around yourself that reflects all, well, most incoming attacks. So that's melee, abilities, things like that, right back at the caster. So if you're being harassed from afar by Roman candles or pinecone cannons, guess what? Right back at you, fool! Keep in mind that it only reflects some abilities. So while it does reflect melee damage, be mindful that it doesn't affect some abilities such as Hydro Pump, or any other ability that doesn't use a projectile such as the Autumn Storm or any other defensive ability like Flower Bomb. This here's the Green Smoothie. This immediately removes all debuffs from the caster. This can be used to break out of crowd control. Minor healing effect when used. So this one is kind of the least popular defensive ability as far as I've seen. According to the devs, internally it was really popular because a lot of people ran sleep and poison builds. So we'll see how the meta evolves as more players become introduced to the beta. But there it is. It just casts a little green poof of light, and any abilities like debuffs that you have on you are instantly gone. However, Vanish also has that with its invuln capability. The advantage that this has over Vanish is that it also heals you. So there's also that. And here we have Rewind. This marks your current place in time, rewinding back to that spot after several seconds with the same HP when casted. So again, if you're familiar with Tracer from Overwatch, it's basically her recall ability. However, instead of an instant recall, this one takes place after a couple of seconds after casting. So maybe it's more like Echo from League of Legends, right? As you can see, if you leave an astral projection of yourself behind, you can do whatever you like, blah, 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 while this is happening. And that includes taking damage, being debuffed, anything like that. You could even die, and you and your body will respawn back where you casted at the end of the timer. Keep in mind that if you're knocked out while this ability is active, you won't revive at the end of the timer. Your unconscious body will just pop back to where you were. And that's all of the abilities in the tutorial room, y'all. Now, this doesn't cover every ability in the game, as they weren't available in this room at this time. So I'll throw up the ones that are missing from the room at the end of the video. But yeah, until next time, I really look forward to playing this game with all of you. I'll be providing all the links you need to be a part of the community in the description below. Just tell them Obsidianite sent ya, and I hope to see you in the fray. Bye-bye!